First thing would be to approve last meeting's agenda. Do we make a motion to approve it?
I move to approve the meeting minutes, yeah?
Wait, adopt the agenda.
Adopt agenda first or meeting minute, or sorry, adopt agenda, yeah. I move to adopt the agenda.
I'll second.
Let's do that now.
Do we do a roll call now?
I think in person, you can do all in favor.
All in favor?
All right. Oral communications.
Oral communications. Do we have anybody of the public, either online, in the building? We don't have anybody that would like to make any comments or have any.
No one in the meeting room right now, and no correspondence as of right now.
So I guess now we could go ahead and move to approve last meeting minutes agenda.
Yeah, you asked for a motion from another member in a second.
Can we get a motion from another member to approve last meeting agenda?
Or is your mic on? Is your mic on?
Try again.
Can you hear me now? Okay. I make a motion to adopt, to approve the minutes of our last meeting.
I'll second that.
Do we do a roll call or we just say all in favor?
Same thing. All in favor.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so last month meeting agenda is, minutes is approved. So now we go to old business.
I'm gonna get the plan. Yeah, let me pull up the 2023 work plan.
Thank you. So Thomas gets the agenda. Just want to get sort of frame the meeting. And so we have two major things. So, but one of them is mainly so the program, the parking permit program that we have been working on. Just want to remind everybody that the council is going to have a public meeting on that tomorrow. So I encourage everybody to attend that. And then the things that we're going to, the whole business agenda is going to be, keep working and refining our program for the rest of the year. So here we have it on the screen. And so I'm going to open this up for discussion. We have about 10 points, but one of the things I want to do is, we talked a little bit about this in the past. How are we going to go about prioritizing? Can you hear me? Okay. So how are we going to go about prioritizing them? Obviously, we're still going to have a meeting with the license of the council. So that's going to provide us some feedback. But just wanted to mention, these 10 points, how we should think about how to prioritize them, and also how we're going to work to get them done. In the past, we have done both, where we have subgroups working on different points, or we have everybody working on a particular point. So I'm going to open that for discussion. And feel free to jump in and give me your opinion.
Having worked in both styles, I think I can say that we have been effective both working as a total council or total committee on a single project, e.g. the parking program we just did. And I think years ago, before any of our time on the committee, when the committee worked on the safe streets to school, safe walking routes to school, I mean, that was done as a full committee project. And I think that was very effective as well. At the same time, I have to say that many of the projects that we broke apart into individual groups, 2 or 3 people. We worked on shuttle bus routes. We worked on, I can't remember all the things we worked on, but many of those were very effective also. And we did get a lot of things done. I think, in my opinion, the key factor should be, is it a major large scale project or a smaller scale project? So for instance, the parking was a citywide, potentially controversial issue. It should be all of us working on it. But say something like when the shuttle buses, which is a smaller, more targeted project, that did not necessarily need everybody working on it. Sight lines was another project that was broken off and worked on by a couple of people. The pedestrian walkways, the stairways up and down. I think we were effective in that one, working just 3 people on that at a time. So in my opinion, I think it really matters what is it that we are working on at that time. So if it is a major project, then I think we should all be doing it. If it's a smaller project, then I think we could be more effective by doing a couple projects at the same time.
I mean, I think that's very good feedback. I don't know if you want to add to that, Darius or Gregory.
No, I think that wisdom sounds good to me personally. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
So essentially, what Pat is saying, we could probably identify the big ones and we all could, jump in as committee, and then the smaller ones, we could make subcommittees and tackle those. Does that sound good?
Sounds good to me.
I guess I have a question process wise. So does the city liaison or someone else comment on sort of the reprioritization after whatever happens regarding the parking tomorrow? Is that sort of an ongoing potential issue?
That's always our surprise. but I mean, we want to be proactive and say, now that we have a lot of the for the rest of the year 2023 work plan, this is how we discussed that we want to do it, and this is what we prioritize it. But then again, if you guys want to tweak things or adjust things, we're open to that.
So can I add, we wanted to, it feels very echoey, wanted to see how the parking thing went with council tomorrow night, because there's a chance that there's more work for the committee based on how they feel about it or what they direct. So that may play very much into what's left on the work plan, but just in the bigger picture also, maybe it's because that door is open. I don't know. The bylaws state that the council, yeah, that makes a big difference. The council or the chief of police or the public works director is referring items to the committee. So what we have on this list, the top 4 items, are ones that were on the work plan last year. And we took to council and they approved, because I don't know if it was just to clarify, the city manager wanted to clarify that all the council knew what you were working on, not just the liaisons particularly. So at this point, we're going to talk with the liaisons about what's on the already approved work plan, what are the other requested items, and in that meeting, figure out what everyone thinks the priority should be. And then I'll be checking in with the city manager about whether we need to go for full council approval or whether just meeting with the liaisons is enough to have a work plan. But I do remember from in the past meetings, our liaisons, and some of you would too, is that they wanted us to have an amount of work that we could accomplish, not 50 things on a work plan that we knew we would not be able to finish in a year. So at this point, we've got what the committee is interested in working on, but we do need to sync with the liaisons and take the next step after that. But we didn't want to, again, have that meeting before we knew what was going on with the parking. And I don't know if they were been free the day before the council meeting anyway. So that's what I see as the next step, is have that liaison meeting, get their feedback, and then see what the next step is from there. So I guess tonight, you've drafted this list. How does everyone feel about this list? Is there anything more that you want to put on it as requested? Is there anything we think should come off? Is there any more adjustment to this list of projects that the committee thinks is a priority?
Could I ask a question?
Yeah.
Number 2, investigation of potential one-way streets for Mariposa and Monterey between Visitation and Solano. Is that still a project that the city wants to consider? I think that came to us from the Director of Public Works. And of course, we stopped that project to go to parking. So it's been a year now.
Right. To my understanding, yeah, it still is. Yeah.
No.
Things. So can you hear me now? So I think, what Karen said makes sense. Maybe we shouldn't get ahead of ourselves and start prioritizing, these points and just wait for the council meeting, especially, tomorrow they're going to go over the big one, the parking, permit program that they're going to do the public meeting. So in that sense, what you're saying is maybe we should use this meeting to review what we have and get comments, just as what Pat said, and talk, he was talking about number 2. So should we just go down the list and then see if anybody has any not clear with the point itself, or if he has additional questions or so forth, and we just review this list one more time? Or do anybody has another idea to use this meeting? This is in the agenda, so I guess we have to do this.
I think that sounds like a good way to go forward.
Okay, so let's go down the list. The first one that we have is, so that one, their review parking issues, etc. So that one is going to be discussed tomorrow. So let's jump to number 2 then. Investigation of potential for one-way street, Mariposa and Monterey between Visitation and Solano. And this is also referred by Director of Public Works. So I'll open up this, working point for any questions or discussion now.
Nothing here on this point for me. Only because we've already I was here when we dug into it originally. So I think there's still some ongoing work, and we'll pick up, if that becomes a priority.
Okay, so let's jump to, do you want to add anything else to this point, Pat, besides what you said?
You mean on the one-way streets? So we did start that. And I think the plan was to do stand out there street surveys. I know I did that, and maybe 1 or 2 of the others did that, and count cars going this way, that way. I don't think that's a very time-consuming project to do. Okay. But except for the time out, the times we picked were coming to school in the morning, 7 to 8 or so, and then going back home again. It was, I forget if it was 2:30 to 3:30 or something like that, whenever school gets out. So I know for folks working back in an office now, that might be hard to break away, but I know I have time to go back out and do that again. And I found that, I think that's the bulk of the work, really, is the time spent in the field. And it is very illuminating as to see how the cars are interacting and making turns, and they do get into congestion and honking, and then there's a whole ton of kids walking and not always on the sidewalk. So I think it's something we should look at and spend some time on, and then make a recommendation from there.
So, I mean, it sounds like, there's been some work done, so maybe we could pick up from there or just start all together. But it's definitely, a point that we're going to work on, continue working on. And like you said, I live on that street, and I do realize that there's a lot of, a room to improve it and to make it smoother. Any other comments? Okay, so let's move on to point number 3, emergency vehicles access on all city streets for fire safety. It's also referred by Director of Public Works. Who wants to take the first crack at it?
I guess I was not here for when this one, so if we get some maybe, a little background or something either from whoever was here maybe on what the sort of main issue is here and why this is something that was recommended.
I can throw in a little bit. There was a couple of particular locations, and it was, an older constitution of the committee, I think, that worked on Tulare, for example. So the city, we were incorporated after some of it was built, and street standards were adopted, even later than that. So a dead end street would have to, I think, couldn't be longer than 500 feet now, and would have to have a cul-de-sac of a certain size, which you would see in the Northeast Ridge now, but didn't occur in central Brisbane. So an issue, a definite street that was a concern is Tulare Street. So we looked at some geometrics to create a way for emergency vehicles to at least be able to turn around at the end of the street. And it involved the use of private property, like someone willing to hash out an area and not park on a paved area on private property. And we were unsuccessful in getting that to happen at the time. So I don't know if there's more on this on other streets. I don't know if there's more that we can do on Tulare either. So that's maybe a question mark that might be good to have that discussion with the council liaisons too about, we've got this plan if we can bring it forward in the future on Tulare, but I don't know if anybody has particular concerns or if this is a bigger picture thing. Also, we had a presentation from North County Fire, and I think everybody knows that we're in a joint powers agreement with Daly City and Pacifica and Brisbane to share fire emergency response. So North County Fire is the name of that organization. And they we had a battalion chief talk to us about Zone Haven. So it's a new program that is being used countywide to be able to alert people by zones about how to evacuate, because there's definite concern about wildland fires coming into the city or into central Brisbane, even the Northeast Ridge. So there may be information that we can get about that, but I think it was done on a staff fire administration level to set out these zones to alert people how and when to evacuate. But there might be room to get updates on that, or we might, who knows, if there's feedback from fire about things that they think could be done on roadways to also make their access better. So I think we need to kind of dig into that to see if there's more that we could do in the present.
I think that's a good way to approach it. And I think that's kind of how we were thinking about this. Because you're right, Tulare is a one single street, but the lessons from Santa Rosa and elsewhere indicate that the ability and the understanding of how to get out of a neighborhood and two ways out of a neighborhood, whether two ways by car or one way by foot, one way by car, and to have the public educated, or at least readily able to access information on how to do that. But you get up into some of the streets up above, if the fire truck's coming up this way and people are trying to go out, I don't know, let's pick Kings right? It's a narrow street to begin with. You've got difficulties. So I think what the fire marshal had said when they came to us was when the fire marshal made the presentation, was they were devising, I believe working with Brisbane Police Department, what would happen, what streets would become one way, which way they would go. And that was 3-4 years ago now. I think it would be good to have an update. Maybe if we can, I don't know how we have the fire marshal come and describe that to us in a now that we're in a different meeting format. But last time we just put a map down on a table and we're able to look at it. And but I think that would be beneficial. And maybe that's something that once they have determined which way streets will be oriented during an evacuation, then we look at, do we need signage? Do we need public outreach, public education, things like that? So.
Sounds like this is probably going to be one of those big ones that, in my opinion, when I see this, it's almost like the definition of, the text definition of a safety street committee, problem. So it looks like it's going to be a big one, and maybe we should also think about working as a whole committee, to try to understand and deal with this. It also reminds me of the safe route. So I don't know if there's a map. If there isn't a map, maybe we should put a map, in place for fire safe route. And now that we're going to be working on this, we shouldn't just limit to those streets where, that you have a dead end and not with the right space, for the fire engines to turn, with just other streets where it's just complicated for fire engines to go in, and just to have a better understanding and in general.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that, we need to get some of these stairways built in some cases, It's not, I don't know if we can just mark all of the routes. It's a thing, definitely. And I mean, the fire has designated drive routes, but I don't know myself exactly how they're communicating that, but they want to go up to the upper, assuming it's a wildland fire, they would go up one route to the upper streets, and they want people to evacuate the other route. But everybody needs to know that if something like that happens, so that there aren't those conflicts that you're thinking about.
Could we get an update from North County Fire on where that project stands?
Yeah, we should ask for that. That was a battalion chief that came.
A battalion
before.
chief, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the concern from the past have been the fire, because obviously we had many, several years with a lot of fire, but this year was particularly different with the rain, and then we had a lot of big trees, basically causing a lot of harm. And I don't want to deviate from this, but we should also think about what kind of hazard those trees, when it rains a lot, is going to have on the public in terms of, safe streets. Okay, so maybe Thomas, that's a point that we could probably add to the work plan. Does anybody has a comment on that?
Well, I can make sure to reach out to the battalion chief, and then just like Patrick said, see where we are on this, and if more can be done, we can go from there.
Thank you. So I guess for the sake of time, we're gonna keep moving here. The next point is study pedestrian path on west side of Bayshore Boulevard from San Bruno Avenue to Old County Road. Is it something you looked at, Pat?
Yes, you and I looked at that together. And I think this, I think if I remember the council meeting last year, this was put on as a number 4 priority after the other 3, but it was an area that they did prioritize as opposed to the ones down below, they didn't give a prioritization to those, but they did to that one. And, you know, people walk from the trailer park to back into town. I see them all the time. And I know the shoulder is reasonably wide there, but it is still a shoulder. I'm just thinking, you know, I see people with strollers at times. You know, it's just a situation that I think could be made safer by putting a sidewalk in there. And I know we have a well-marked, we have a well-delineated bike path there. And I think that's an area that should be looked at to be improved.
I would also agree with that section of Bayshore right there. You see all those pedestrians. And then I think, isn't there a bus stop on the other side of the street near the warehouse over there? And I've seen people jaywalk, frankly, across to get to that bus stop. And so I don't know if it's something we can work with Samtrans or San Mateo County Transportation District about trying to move, maybe suggesting them to move that bus stop to be in an area that is closer to the crosswalk, for example, that's there. Because right now it's kind of in a spot that it encourages people to jaywalk. And that's a very dangerous street, you know, with the speed limit on that street. So yeah, good one for us to study, I think.
Any more comments? Yeah, I mean, I do agree. If you look at Bayshore, you know, if you look at the the light, that when you turn left, you know, you're pretty much coming to Valley Drive. So from there all the way to Guadalupe Canyon, I think they do have a functional sidewalk. So I think, you know, we should definitely have a functional sidewalk from Old County Road all the way to at least San Bruno, you know, and to Gregory's point, you know, if you have a bus stop and that bus stop gets used a lot, we should probably think about, you know, either making more obvious that to use the light, or come up with some other means where people could cross to the bus stop. Because the trailer park has a lot of people there, and people that there are kids and that they go to school. I used to see kids walking in front of my business that they were going to Brisbane Elementary. Okay. Do you have any comments on this, Karen?
Well, we do have the TA grant for that. That's going to focus on the it's a transportation authority grant. That's going to focus on the bus shelters on Bayshore, and then we did get approved for that. But
No, you're mixing up. We applied for a grant to move that bus stop. We haven't heard. We have the shelters on Valley. So we did apply for a grant to improve that bus stop, aware of the problem, and Samtrans actually prefers them to be at the far side of a traffic signal. So it would, I feel like we've talked about this. It would take some retaining walls because the slope is there and it's not that wide, and sidewalk and ADA, and they need a certain distance that they probably have at that one, but don't have everywhere. We haven't heard if we got it, but it was estimated at, like, with design and construction, like $500,000. So it's not, you know, pocket change to do that.
Which bus stop are you talking about? Are you talking
BWR.
on the west side or on the east side?
Northbound, east side.
And The retaining wall is because of the fall off down to VWR Road or?
It would move, the proposal is to move it to the north side of the intersection.
Okay.
At Samtrans's, that would meet their design criteria also to move it. And there's not a lot of space there to just,
And that's a
shoehorn it in.
city, even though it's a Samtrans stop, that's a city funded.
well, if it's
Project?
a grant, it's
Oh.
not our money.
Okay.
We proposed like a 5% match, the minimum that we could. So the Transportation Authority, Samtrans, if we wait for them, it might not ever happen. And it's our residents that are using
Right.
it. So
Yeah, I think that might have been mentioned before, but just didn't remember it. So the reallocation of the bus stop is $500K.
yeah, with design and construction. Yeah.
Okay, wow. And and obviously we don't have any design or preliminary work just to have an idea how much a sidewalk on the other side will be, right?
Oh, on the west side? We're working with a UC Berkeley, I don't remember what they're called. Their Safe Trek is their acronym they use to kind of do a study. So we should be able to present something to you guys at an upcoming meeting with what they've looked into on that.
That would be great.
Great.
Any additional comments on point number 4?
Was that study done specifically for that, for point number 4 then, to look at that west side?
Yeah, so they were offering complete street studies, and we kind of said, well, all of Brisbane, and they said you kind of narrow it down to one thing, and there had been some interest on the council side, so we proposed that. I also wanted to mention that on the west side at BWR and Bayshore southbound, I don't know if there's a lot of movement, but there had been a plan, an application put in to put in a condo building. I don't know if anybody had heard about this on the west side. So that initial plan that needed a lot of changes, and I don't think it's been resubmitted, and I think it's actually probably been a couple of years, they had a little frontage road to access their condo building. And so we had them make space for a bus stop to make that side safer, because right now it's a sign in the dirt. So in that whole area, those bus stops could potentially be improved without just the city having to pay for them completely themselves. But then there hasn't been a lot of movement on that one on the west side. So if that ever were developed, though, the bus stop would be improved.
Thank you. So the other set of points, unless our items CSC requested but were not prioritized by council. And like I said, let's look at number 5, speeding on streets in the Norris Ridge.
So what I remember about this is that we looked as a committee when we were doing subcommittees and looking at a bunch of different areas. We looked at Mission Blue at Checker Spot, and that being at the top of the hill on the north end of Mission Blue Drive. And we've had complaints over the years about pedestrians feeling safe crossing there, and people, there's a stop sign there, right?
No.
Not a stop sign. Okay. People speeding. So then pedestrians not knowing when they had enough room to cross. And we've made some improvements and done some traffic calming there. We've put radar signs and we've kind of narrowed that. But at the time, we also collected data, and I think it was at the request of the committee, further down on Mission Blue around Monarch. And then we were kind of directed to work on the parking. So I think my understanding was that was the other thing that the committee was interested in looking at, was Mission Blue around Monarch, that there was speeding. I don't know if there are other issues beyond that.
If I recall, this is a subject that Alex, looked at intensively, and there might be some data points. Is this the same one?
Yeah, there was data collected. Yeah.
The police department ran speed studies on both sides, where they check the speed, count the cars, the tubes on the street. They did that both ways. It was a little further down. So at Checker Spot, the city did install calming features, which actually caused the road to narrow a bit as you get to that intersection. And I think this is just anecdotal opinion on my part, but I think it does slow down cars there. I think I don't know if any comments have come back from the public since then on people trying to cross up there, but I drive it and I know I'm going to slow down because it just, it's narrower. But I think people are still going quite fast out in front of the community center, the baseball fields and all of that. I think that area is still, it's 25 and numerous cars are well over 40 in there. So if we wanted to look in further down the road, that might be a possibility, but.
Yeah, I mean, so now, with COVID pretty much out of sight, you're going to see a lot of activity in that field and Mission Blues, and so that's going to get a lot of traffic. I mean, in terms of people, not cars. And one thing I was wondering is if there's a way, maybe Tomas could give us, different tools to slow, or like a menu of tools to slow down this type of traffic. And we're going to get to another one. It's not necessarily the same, but just to have, you have your speed bump. Then I seen those little plastic, stuff on the street, or just different things to look at, right? To sort of signal, slow down, and there's, people crossing here and so forth.
I mean, yeah, that could definitely be an option I look into. Just want to make sure, since it's one of the less prioritized ones, but I can definitely add it to my list.
I wonder, I'm looking at our list here. We have 3 items, numbers 5, 6, and 10, which specifically refer to speed on streets. Mission Blue is number 5. San Bruno Avenue is number 10. Number 6 is kind of just a more general, anywhere in the city type of question. I'm wondering if we might be better served by maybe lumping those together and looking at a project of traffic calming throughout the city or something along those lines, maybe.
I agree. Anybody has another comment or idea on that, or opinion?
I definitely agree with that. I think, like, for example, speeding on Northwest, we could just say speeding on the streets in Northwest Ridge and San Bruno Avenue, and also just looking at the local, the legislation as it comes to general speed limits within the city. We can kind of incorporate those into one category, and we can work on that all together, Yeah.
What was your technical opinion on that, Karen?
I was thinking that if we're talking about traffic calming, then it could be a good thing for the committee to do to talk through all the types of traffic calming and help recommend a policy about which ones should and shouldn't be used in Brisbane. For example, we did adopt, it's in ordinance about speed humps, that they not be put on any streets that are greater than a 5% slope because they're dangerous. So, what is the policy around using radar signs and chicanes and narrowing and all of that? So that could be, I think that's a reasonable thing for you guys to be talking about in a, big picture, maybe not deciding at each location, but having that menu. So I don't know that we could start with all the things that are available and then we could work through which ones fit for us.
Yeah, sounds good. So can we do in terms of format for that point, can we do it similar to number 8 where you have like, some sort of general title and then we put the ones below as like sub points?
Yeah, sure. That seems more organized, easier.
It has the potential to be open-ended as well as more areas may, I mean, we've looked at other traffic calming around the backside of Brisbane Elementary and such. I forget the street names, but we've looked at things there and been asked to look at things. People, you can, sometimes you see the little person sign out there, the little, right, slow down, that residents put out. And that we'll put these things under it, but then maybe some sort of comment and other areas as they come up or some sort of language like that. Other streets as they.
Yeah. I guess the other thing that it might come up, because we're looking at these streets and we notice that there needs to be, we notice activity that people are speeding and it's obviously a risk and a safety issue. But we should also get the people who live around there, sort of like it was done, I forgot with another, there was some, we looked at something like that where we had a little bit of public outreach on that block. I'm not sure if it's going to be necessary to do it here, but just to keep that in mind.
You mean on the streets where something might be installed or something? Is that, yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, just not to get the people by surprise. Maybe we send like mail and tell them, hey, we feel that there's quite a bit of speeding here, and these are some of the remedies that we're thinking of. And then people will get aware and participate in the meeting and express their opinion. Okay, so where are we at here, Thomas?
Let me add one comment. At some point, MTC was offering quick builds, and I attended a seminar about it, and the concept was that, like, if you were going to add chicanes and narrow down, and that could be like a tree and a planter. Berkeley does that a lot, or it could be just armadillos are these like things that you can put on the road that look like an armadillo that kind of direct you off to the side, that you do these quick builds that are inexpensive, that change traffic. And you do that because then you'll get feedback, and they're not permanent necessarily. They're cheaper to install. And then you'll hear if people like them or not, or maybe people get used to them over time. And then you can do something that's either more attractive or more permanent or whatever the case is. So, we struggle to get feedback. So that might be a way to, when we find an issue and we want to try a traffic calming thing, that we do a quick build and then see if we hear from people about it,
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay. Looks like we're moving along pretty good. So one question, should we go on those points that are related, to reduce or mitigate speed, each one of them, or should we just leave it as is for right now and then go to another subject here?
I think we can, group those speeding items together and then, go on to the next one. Yeah.
Like they'd all become number 5, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the next one will be improving bike lanes and initiative encouraging bicycling. So, this one is it's a good one in my opinion. Brisbane is close to the South San Francisco biotech, which employs a lot of people, right? And then also now you're going to have more businesses north with the Sierra Point and so forth. And if you have, nice bike lanes, people are going to be encouraged to use them and use their bike. And there's a big development program coming in that might be a good thing to get some of this wish list, if you will, for them to improve some of this bike lane. But as it is right now, I've been to a lot of cities where I see a lot of bike stickers on the streets, and it just tells you that those city officials are encouraging to use bikes. So that's one idea behind this. I just wanted open it up for the rest of you guys to and obviously we have the environment impact. So what do you think about this?
Just wanted to make a quick comment that also, I mean, Christian, you're aware of this, but Colleen Mackin did express some, I guess, she's thinking ahead about the e-bike situation and how that might be. I mean, Brisbane, it's currently not something we see every day in Brisbane, but she did email us and express that, in the future, that could be something that affects Brisbane and bicycling in Brisbane. So just to comment on that, just that, the mayor agrees.
Anybody? I could start calling names.
I agree. I mean, I think we should encourage biking as much as possible. I don't think there are many bike routes in Brisbane currently that are designated sort of as lanes for bike ride, like many other cities have. I think just through the main routes of the city, I don't, I would not personally bicycle through a lot of that. And of course, all the way down to Sierra Point too. So yeah, I think we have a lot of work there, and definitely would love to encourage more bicycling.
Yeah, I would agree. I think looking at different, maybe even looking at if there's possibility for future bike paths, also something that help to make things easier for bikes to get around, right? And also, of course, improving bike is always a good thing for us to look at, I think, for safety and for environmental stuff.
Yeah, we have two schools here. We have the Brisbane Elementary and also the middle school, and there's a lot of kids, and I have to tell you, I haven't seen that many biking, and I grew up in a community where a lot of people went to school on bikes, so maybe we need to try to bring that back.
Mm-hmm. I agree. There is a city bike route map in the master plan. Maybe you guys could send us a link to that again. That would be, and I think what was done a few years ago on Guadalupe was terrific, where I think actually we led the way in terms of putting the rumble strip on both sides and setting aside a bike path within Daly City for their part of Guadalupe, I think followed suit. And that is not a commuter route. I see people in pelotons and training and stuff there on the weekends. But I do see working people riding their bikes somewhat on Bay Shore, going to South City area, but a lot on going around the lagoon. So I guess they're going up over the bridge, and then they either continue Tunnel Road up into the city, or they turn onto Sierra Point, and I guess they're coming out into Sierra Point. And those roads are not real good for bicyclists, especially going over the bridge. And I've seen people, when those large tanker trucks coming across the bridge, and the bike route, there is a shoulder space there, not a designated bike lane, but it would behoove people to get on the sidewalk with their bike rather than try and share the road with some of the wide trucks that come across there. I think that's something we should look at for terms of safety as well as promoting more use for people. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this point, if we want to do justice to it, it might be one of those points where we might have the whole committee work on it. It's good that you mentioned that, Pat, because you actually reminded me, forget his names. So we had a citizen that, used Bayshore as a commuter and bike. And he brought a very good PowerPoint presentation and point out, that stretch that it was very dangerous, and there was a lot of ambiguity in terms of who has the right of way and why not. And there was some discussion that when they were working on 101, that could have been a good opportunity to do like an alternative route on that side, and we, brainstorm around there. So it wouldn't, it would be helpful to pick that up. And also, this reminds me when Justin routed a map that had different bike routes in with the new Baylands development. So I think it would be good to try to connect the dots, and have better understanding, what is different bike lanes in terms of within Brisbane, and also how do we connect to the other areas that will take us to the different cities and stuff. Any comments, Karen?
I mean, I think the master plan is a good starting point because it was 2017, but there was a committee member that was our representative. I don't remember who, because it's 6 years ago now.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of community input, you never get everyone giving input, but it mapped what we do have and what the priorities were seen as for adding more space for bikes. It's difficult in central Brisbane because the roads are narrow and there isn't even room for pedestrian traffic and the roads are steep. But that doesn't mean that's not all of Brisbane. There's still a lot of other places that people would like to go by bikes. And I do think there was an SF to Google group that, they meet in the city and they ride all the way down to Google, and people peel off down at Genentech and different places. I am aware through OSEC that Genentech pays their employees really well to go by bike and not to add a car to their campus because they have a limit on how much parking they have. I think it might be like $12 a day or something. So probably a lot of them are going down to Genentech. On Tunnel Avenue, that's come up many, many times. And the Baylands, when it's developed, they are on the hook to make Tunnel Avenue really, to add bike lanes and make it safe. And, who knows, the standards have probably changed since they conceived of the development. They've probably even gotten stronger because like Bayshore Boulevard right now as a principal arterial and at the speeds that it has, guidelines would say, not law and not requirements, but guidelines would say that you should have a barrier between traffic. We put in that rumble strip and that was extra, but it would be a physical barrier between bikes and vehicle traffic. So Tunnel Avenue will be improved, and we're reluctant to, at the width that it is, and it's private, the part of it, to do anything with bikes. When we resurface the north end that is owned by the city, we put in sharrows and we put in signs. So it's a little better. It's not ideal, but it's a little better for now.
I have a question. Speaking of standards, something I've noticed in the last few years, maybe starting just before COVID hit, on the peninsula, cities have taken to actually painting the bike path a very bright green color. Will we be doing that in Brisbane, or do we have plans to do that for existing routes or just future routes that might be built or?
I don't know that we have plans to. It definitely adds to the cost of putting in bike facilities quite a bit to color the
Mhm.
pavement or the concrete. I think we could look at what we recommend around that,
Okay.
because, I don't know, probably it makes sense where the route's challenging or where it's less protected or,
Mhm.
doing it everywhere. I don't know, even if you got grants, you still have to maintain it, just like colored curbs and striping and all of that,
Thank you.
So, our downtown of central Brisbane is in visitation, right? So, one open question I have is, because I've seen in other cities, those bike, they're not necessarily lane because, a lot of this infrastructure was already built and it was built thinking of cars. But you see the bike stickers on the roads, and that's just make the statements that, bikes are welcome. So if we were to do something like that on visitation, I know that there's a lot of stuff going on over there. In one area you have, parking that is against the sidewalk, but in the other one you sort of have, like in the library, parkings that are, pretty much lateral. So from a technical point, do you see, is that not just possible from the get-go, or because people would like to bike, to go get food or to the, to the downtown, basically.
Are you asking about sharrows or about a bike lane?
Um, I don't know their name, but the bike stickers on the road.
Yeah, so if it's just a bicycle legend with the person in the helmet and line stripes, that's a bike lane. If it's got 2 or 3 arrows and then a bike underneath it, that's a sharrow that says you're on a vehicle lane, but expect bikes here too, and bikes are allowed to be here too. So it's letting car drivers know that the bikes will be in the area. We don't have anything like that. And if people are doing it, it would be a good application to have sharrows, I think. But there's not enough width without doing something with parking to put bike lanes in. And if you take away parking, well, everybody knows that's not popular.
Yeah, I mean, definitely not bike lanes, but like you said, having people aware that people might be riding bikes on the street. What is the speed limit on visitation?
25
25.
as a business street. We are planning to repave the lowest 2 blocks, so that might be a good thing to think about, is adding sharrows when it's restriped.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't think it's something that technically, is not possible or it's going to cause problem, but if not, I mean, I suggest, it would be a good opportunity to have them. And in terms for business, I think business would like that, because it will be more activity, people would drive slower and things like that. There's a coffee shop too there, right? Yeah, my house.
I think regarding what Councilmember Mackin said about or mentioned or emailed to you about e-bikes, I think that might be a good thing for the committee to think about is, how do we feel about e-bikes? I don't know if other cities have policies on city streets. But I do think in central Brisbane, it's one of the possible solutions to that last mile problem to
Yes.
getting to transit, because the roads are steep and some people aren't going, maybe can't ride up. Can you ride up that first block of Kings at 800 Humboldt? That is a steep road,
Yes.
So they're good and bad. So, can we carve out what a recommendation about whether they should be allowed? I mean, if we had an e-bike share, we might get a lot of use, but they're also, I guess people are starting to buy them on their own too. So might be part of this item, initiatives encouraging bicycling, about having a policy about e-bikes.
What does how does the state classify an electric bike?
Well,
Do they?
There's two ways. And I know mostly about on trails because there are electric mountain bikes. So some places don't allow any and some allow pedal assisted e-bikes. I don't think any allow full electric. Pedal assist e-bikes don't engage the motor until you pedal. And they cut off at, I believe it's 20 miles per hour. Because of the law, they don't go over that speed, but that's still fast for some cases. I think I thought I understood that like in Europe, they could only go 15 miles per hour before they cut off.
And those are allowed on a trail? Is that what
Some places do, some places don't.
Oh, does California have a regulation on this statewide? I mean, is it part of the vehicular code or no?
I don't think it's in the vehicle
Okay.
code, but I'd have to check.
Okay.
Yeah, so no, that's something that if we want to, to bundle that with the encouraging bicycling, which it makes sense. There are rebates on e-bikes, so maybe a lot of Brisbane citizens might not know that. And then there's this whole talk about defining e-bikes and where can you use them and where can and where not. So that would be another point to start the conversation. And obviously Brisbane is a hilly city, and e-bikes will make a big difference on a lot of people. Like if you live up on the hill, if you have an e-bike, if you like bicycling, that's you're going to use it more, right? So, and then I think one thing that Colleen also mentioned is I'm not sure she just say in particular we're going to allow e-bikes on that loop, on the Crocker Park loop. So that's something that, do we get that point as a separate point, or we also get it under the encouraging bicycling on number 7 point?
If we want to talk about the Crocker Trail, I think we'd have to engage with the Park and Rec Commission, because that sort of the operation of that is kind of under their purview. But I think, yeah, if we want to have input on it, we could possibly have like a joint subcommittee or something like that.
I mean, if there's a committee that has that under their purview, I mean, let's just have them deal with it.
I mean, that would work too, because you've got horses that use that trail. You've got, once it's improved, there are a lot of electric type of scooters, and they're gonna kind of have to figure out who should use it and what the speeds should be and how to keep people organized about it. I gave lots of comments about that when the master plan was being studied. I thought they should have signs that indicate like slower people on the middle and faster people on the outside. There's no easy way to have a center line on, a decomposed granite or a crusher fine surface. So that wasn't going to happen as part of the resurfacing. But yeah, I think if it gets a lot of use, we're going to need to have people figure out where they're supposed to be, so that, people walking don't like to see those electric bikes go whizzing by them, or even say someone on a mountain bike that's going full speed.
It's
a user conflict.
trails, part of Safety Street, or is that just part of park and recreation, or?
Yeah, it's more parks and recreation. I mean,
Yeah.
if we make the case that people are actually commuting to school or to work on it, then we have some say in it, yeah.
Yeah, so there's definitely probably an overlap area that we could, work with them and understand what they think and share an opinion from our group to them.
Yeah.
Okay. So Thomas, I think for number 7, it would be helpful to have it in a format like number 8. We just start adding stuff under it just to be more
Yeah,
clear.
definitely. I think that makes sense. I think those two things definitely go hand in hand, and one will help the other progress as well. So yeah.
Okay. All right. So if nobody else has comment on number 7, let's move on to number 8. So for number 8, we have transportation plan for Sierra Point, including shuttle bus services, durations, and other forms of transportation. I think I'm going to put you on the spot here, Darius, since you being the liaison for the Sierra Point. If you could comment on this.
No other updates on this other than, I think that should be part of the plan and things we look at. So yeah, I think it's good that it's here. I think biking would also fall under this as well as part of the plan for maybe other forms here, but yeah.
So you have a counterpart. Do you have somebody that sort of deals with the scope of Safety Street, so to speak, on Sierra Point that you're talking to, or you just attend those meetings and gather what they're saying and just want to have a better understanding on that?
Yeah, I guess after the last meeting, which was the city council presentation, there has been no other action on the committee or anything as of that, as far as I know. So I think they're still going back and forth with the consultants there. So I think that's on pause at the moment, maybe.
Yeah, that's a big project, and they're also doing a park, and so there's a lot of moving parts. You have, obviously, I think the several biotechs, and obviously those are going to have their own parking lots, and why not? But for the park, and then the shuttle business, the shuttle where they're going to use the one that we have here, they're going to have another one, or are they going to put another shuttle bus stop over there? Just having better understanding on that, I think would be good.
I don't think that was part of the scope of the other committee, if that's what you're asking. I don't think any of that was part of that scope. So I think something we should do as maybe a subcommittee here, but that was not, part of that plan.
No, I'm saying those are the type of stuff that Linda alluded to, and I think will be worth having a better understanding, and that project is moving pretty quick. So
Which project?
Is it moving quickly? Which project? I don't think it's moving at all.
the biotech park in Sierra Point.
And I think we talked a bit about development, that all of the traffic is reviewed. And the planning commission has, planning staff and the planning commission has jurisdiction over some of the development review. So when a developer comes in, they have to do a traffic study. We know it's deficient and they have to make upgrades. So there is no legal official role for complete streets and development review.
Oh, okay, so we're off the hook there.
And that's one way to look at it, yes. So I like to put it that way.
Yeah, obviously, these are mega projects, but I was just wondering if there's some stuff that they're expecting us to do, or we want to sort of look into it before it becomes a problem. And and I also know that they're building a park, and in addition to that, I guess the other thing that we sort of had in our purview is the shuttle bus that goes to that area. But so just wondering if they're going to have more shuttle bus stops over there, or it doesn't impact what we already have.
Was anybody on the committee when commute.org's executive director came and talked to the committee about, I'm sure Gregory and Darius were not,
I was,
about their program?
Yeah, I
And
remember that very well.
yeah, and so, commute.org has 2 commute routes that go through Crocker Park and Central Brisbane and take people to the Balboa BART station and the Bayshore Caltrain station. And Tomas could tell you anecdotally, he uses them. I have used them on occasion. And what I remember from that presentation and my interface with that organization is that they really struggle to be able to pay for what they do. They have to go after regional grants. They're getting harder to get, and they have to have a certain amount of use to be able to be awarded these grants, like, because they don't cost anything. The businesses pay in, but that's not even completely paying for it. The city pays in for the residents to use it, but that's not even completely covering their cost because, they drive around these shuttles and they're not even full. But Brisbane is one of the best users in the county that they
I
have.
think it was the best in
Yeah.
his words. Yeah.
Yeah. And-
Is it true? I heard somewhere that they were talking, maybe it was in the Star, I read it, the most recent Star, that they were talking about cutting, or was that the senior shuttle?
That was the senior shuttle.
Oh,
That was
okay.
Samtrans.
So it wasn't the commute.org one.
No, that was
Oh,
Samtrans. And the senior shuttle, just to go on a little tangent, is a Samtrans provided service that has a route that operates between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. And you can find it on their website, but it's not, and you can find information probably in the front of the city, but not super well advertised. And they would to some degree take people off the route if they could, because they had so few users that it would go to Tanforan and a couple of particular places in the county for people that couldn't drive, but it wasn't used very much and it's expensive to operate. So I think that's why that's going away separately. But commute.org runs during commute hours, morning and afternoon, and hits those locations. They get a lot of people. Our understanding is that they get a lot of people that don't have cars, that live in Daly City or San Francisco, that take public transportation to one of those points and then work in Crocker Industrial Park. They have a few people in Brisbane that then, so all those people get off the shuttle and it does the rest of the route empty. They have a few people that get on in Brisbane and then go to their job by getting on to BART and Caltrain, but they're, struggling to keep afloat at that level. So I think in terms of Sierra Point, so I'm telling you that because having a public shuttle that runs in a whole other area is probably beyond, as a dream. This Sierra Point one is private and funded by those businesses. But, if we have information or are going to look at how it's used or survey people that work in Sierra Point and make recommendations, I think we can do that. But I think our grasp of it is not that great at this point. I don't think mine is that great. I think this item way back originally got on the list because the idea was you got all those people working out at Sierra Point. What if they take this shuttle? What if they wanted to come downtown for lunch? How do we get them into downtown? Is there a way to make that better? That's how it originally started. But I think it's a challenge. I don't think there's a lot of value in the committee saying, well, I recommend that the city fund a shuttle to supplement what's there, because I don't think we can do it unless a lot of other things get taken off the council's plate to do, just in terms of the dollars and the management of it and all of that.
So the existing shuttle network, it's mainly bringing people to the Crocker Park.
The commute.org runs a route from Balboa BART and from Bayshore Caltrain into Crocker Park and into central Brisbane. So there are 2 buses. And I think one goes through both and one just goes to Crocker.
And do they go to Caltran, the one-
Bayshore Caltrain
Caltrain.
Station.
Oh,
yes.
okay, cool.
The other use of that he pointed out was middle school kids leaving town on Friday afternoon or whatever to go into the city and I guess get picked up by parents at night or something. But he said there was a large exodus of minor age people out of Brisbane on Friday afternoons. And they knew that because they were calling, when is the bus coming, or the app, or somehow they were always checking, when will the bus be at this stop? And the driver, I think, keeps a log of people getting on and so forth.
Yeah, I
thought that
think
was
that-
interesting.
I think they have to document their use for their grants. I hadn't remembered that part. That's interesting, yeah.
And I will say, for purposes of like the Sierra Point shuttle that exists, is I actually used to work for the company that operated that shuttle. And you're right, it's all funded by the businesses over there right now. And maybe the city does. I don't know if the city does any funding into it now. I think the businesses actually get a lot of grants from the county, I think, to help with the program. But
At that meeting, one of the things we asked him was, well, can the route be altered a little bit to pick up more people in Brisbane, such as people up in the Ridge? Or, I mean, it does come through town here and go out. So it kind of serves central Brisbane. And he said that they had looked at that, they had tried those kinds of things, but they found that because most of their ridership was commuter based, they were very time and route sensitive. In other words, when they tried to go onto additional streets, the route took longer, ridership actually declined because people, they're headed to work or they're headed home, they've got to catch the train at a certain time. And so that actually impacted negatively their ridership. And interestingly, he said their primary competitor was not private cars, it was ride services, Uber and Lyft. It was very different than what we thought were the parameters driving their business when he came, or their service when he came in.
Yeah, that is interesting. So those shorter buses, so they're mainly active in the morning and then toward the end of the day, and then to Karen's point, it would be just it would be interesting to just post a question to them if they would do the lunch thing to bring some of those workers from those areas to to the visitation downtown restaurants here.
I wonder if that's something that the chamber might be able to advocate. I mean, that's bringing business into Brisbane, right?
Right. No, definitely. And one of the things, when you come here for lunch, then there's hardly any parking, so it will help, if you have the timing right, you get dropped off at, more like around 12, and then you get picked, maybe like 1 or 2 trips, and then you could take your lunch that way. It will help those business. So that question, who will be the appropriate person that we could ask that question to?
I was gonna add that since we are meeting with the liaison anyways, we can kind of, once we do that, we can kind of, I don't know, maybe redefine or get clarity on what our role would be and where we could stand, rather than, I don't know, maybe think about all we could do. And we can, once we hear from the Colleen and other council members, we can maybe just be like, hey, so what can we do as Complete Street Safety Committee at that development is my next step.
Sounds good.
Have we approached the liaisons yet to ask for a meeting or,
No, like I said, we wanted to see how the parking went because
okay,
if they say full speed ahead on the parking, maybe we postpone or, see how it goes tomorrow.
okay.
But yeah, soon if not, if we're not continuing with that, definitely we'll schedule for them.
Yeah, I did interchange some emails with Colleen and I guess Karen was CC on it. Essentially, let's wait for them to present that, the residential parking permit program tomorrow and have it digested a little bit and give them a little bit of time. And then we can meet with them and review all these points that we're reviewing right now. All right, so I guess that concludes number 8, unless somebody else has another question or comment. So let's go to number 9. Receive and comment on Baylands transportation circulation plans or other proposal referred by Director of Public Works or City Manager. You want to probably set this, Karen, because just to give us a little background on this point.
I wanted to mention that we met with you to kind of talk about, how your tenureship as chairperson was going to go, and you asked us to get together the past information about the Baylands, the maps that the committee just reviewed in the past, and we haven't done that yet. So we'll work on that. We'll get that out. I think there was a question about what the Complete Street as a committee, what their role would be in review of the plans. They, as you probably know, have put out a draft specific plan, and a consultant has been hired to prepare an EIR for that draft specific plan. So I think we need to ask the question, like, does the committee have an official role in review of that, in review of the transportation and circulation parts of that? And then that might, it looks like it is on the list, requested but not prioritized, because a year ago there wasn't anything to review. So I think we will probably pretty easily and pretty quickly get direction about that. I think at the point of the specific plan, that's just their proposal. And I don't know that, I think the EIR is the thing that is going to, legally has space and time to have public comments on. So yeah, I think there's clarification that could happen on what our part is, what the committee's part is on that.
Yeah, I mean, usually, when you have a big project of this magnitude, you want to get some perks. I'm not saying that the street safety committee is at a position to say, hey, I want this, I want that. But we definitely, have some things, that we could look at what they're doing and offer our opinion, So I think it will be better. It will be beneficial for us to understand and just come out and ask them, do you see an area here that we could offer our review or opinion and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, we can make that a point, and then just in general, not just for one of these issues, but maybe just, like you said, define our roles, where we are, and yeah, we can do that across the board.
In terms of perks or offsets that they provide, I think the ones I'm aware of that past developers have been provided the city have been good for community recreational use, Mission Blue Center, the swimming pool and such. I don't know how much traffic related things have been done, but I think given that it's a very large development and I think there will be traffic impact on Bayshore, I would hope the city makes that a priority, that traffic issue remediation offsets get requested from the developer, whether from the traffic light at San Bruno or other things that may be deemed important.
The Northeast Ridge was a long time ago now, but they did rehabilitate at least Valley Drive and maybe other streets in Crocker Industrial Park. And they paid to build the connection that is the Park Lane extension between the U that is Park Lane and Old County Road.
Okay.
And they paid to move the post office. The post office was an old wooden building right where the road is now, and move them into, as a tenant, into the location that they're at now.
Okay.
Off the top of my head, I can't think of anything else. I mean, they had to signal, I think they signalized North Hill, South Hill, and Valley Drive.
As a result. Okay.
Yeah, and probably Guadalupe and Mission Blue. Yeah,
Okay.
maybe even Guadalupe and North Hill, because that development on the other side of
Is right adjacent to that.
was not built
intersection.
at the time.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
so they did do a bit, the Northeast
Okay.
Ridge. Yeah,
Good.
and at the shore there, the shore and Genesis Towers out in Sierra Point, they're responsible to signalize 101 on-off ramps at Sierra Point Parkway. And unless, I don't know if they're gonna look at a traffic circle, and Sierra Point Parkway and Marina Boulevard, Shoreline Court.
All right.
And they also had to, and again, people, it's great that it's worked out so well, but the improvements that were done at Old County Bayshore, as you leave town, you used to be able to turn left from both lanes. Now the left lane is a left turn and the right is a through. And coming westbound, there was one lane that shared the turn and the through, and now there are two separate lanes. So that was done by that
Okay.
developer.
Okay, good. Thank you.
That's quite a bit.
Yeah. it is.
Definitely. Okay, so we did say that, so any additional comments on point number 9? It's 7:58. Can you remind me what time the meeting concludes?
The goal is 8 o'clock, yeah.
Oh, 8 o'clock. All right, so we did say that number 10 is gonna get bundled with the other ones related to, speed mitigation. So I don't think we need to go over that. And so that concludes the review of the points that we want to work for the remaining of the year. Granted that we still need to have the meeting with the council liaison and review them and get their feedback, to hear more from them in terms of what to prioritize and so forth. So moving on, new business, none. Staff updates.
Yeah, so today, this morning, Karen and I and our inspector, we met with a lot of contractors who were interested in bidding on the Crocker Trail resurfacing project. And the pre-bid meeting is a requirement for them to actually submit the bid. They need to be present and sign in. So yeah, that's kind of the project. Last winter, we were talking about all the things we were sending Caltrans and they were sending it back, and all the approvals we were trying to get. That's all working out. And now we're in the heart of it, which is getting the actual bids and starting the work. And as a Caltrans requirement for federal funds, we need to invoice them within 6 months. So it's essential that the project will start in June. So it's going to be a summer project. It's going to be our biggest, or my biggest project. Sure, it's not Karen's biggest project, my biggest project to date. And yeah, so that's moving forward, and bids will close on April 20th. So now that the contractors have seen the site, they have a couple of weeks to get their bids together and bid on this project.
Congrats.
Mike?
Your mic's off.
Oh, sorry. Did I hear clearly earlier? Maybe it was Karen that said the surface will now be decomposed granite?
So it's, we're still kind of That's an option. Yes, that's one of the options, and a likely option. So
Well, I guess, any other staff updates?
No, I think that's it right now. You know that we applied for the federal funds to make permanent repairs to streets that are federal aid routes that were damaged by the storms, but we don't know when we're going to hear about that. It's either going to be a lot of work for us, or we're not going to get funding, or maybe we'll get partial funding.
Was that a lot? A
Um,
lot of damage?
Well, our storm drains are full of dirt. That's one, to be able to clean them. Our trash capture devices are impacted and need to be replaced in a lot of cases. On San Bruno, the backside of San Bruno, there were a couple of slides that really should have retaining walls, if, at the best, if not at least some erosion protection. Because when it slides, you lose the vegetation on it is gone, and that's what's kind of protecting a steep slope and without a wall. Is there anything else? That was yeah.
General potholes that have appeared everywhere.
Yeah, only the ones on federal aid route. I don't think they cover potholes, actually.
Okay.
But yeah, they still need to be done.
I heard in the news that some cities are having, I guess there are businesses that they inspect trees, and although, it's not like a certain science that they're going to tell you, hey, this tree is going to fall down or not, but they can at least give you an educated opinion if it's in bad shape and you got to do something like cut it or reinforce it. Is that something that the city has considered, or you feel it's not necessary?
I just heard today that some people in the community have been asking and had concerns about trees. So, I don't know what the groundswell is, because definitely on the OSEC side, they're trying to save every tree that's possible for, climate change impacts, for, carbon dioxide,
Carbon capture.
sequestration, and for shade, and all of those reasons. And every time a tree is removed, a tree should be replanted. And they did have input on the policies for private tree removal. So we have public right of way and we have private property. And private property, you have to apply for a permit to remove a tree. And typically, if it's any type of protected tree of a certain size or a certain type, you have to replace it with another tree. On the public side, Public Works manages those street trees. Somewhat complaint driven if people think that a tree is damaged. We have been deep root watering trees in the summer during the drought years. Now, obviously, everything's saturated. So, there's that side of it, is like we want to keep trees as much as possible. But then there's the side where now people are worried that more trees might fall. And it's not always obvious when the soil is oversaturated. It's not a typical, the tree is sick necessarily. It can be a combination of things. So what I understand is that people have asked, and the city manager is giving a brief update at the council meeting tomorrow, which would be after the parking item, a little bit later in the agenda, and talking about what we can do. And OSEC has asked, on the side of being able to keep as many trees as we can, that we do an inventory and develop a plan about what kind of canopy we want to have, which means how much coverage can we have by trees, how big of a canopy. So yeah, I think it's on the minds of a lot of people to do such a thing. And the arborists have certifications, so you can get people that are certified and experts about trees that can look at their health. I don't know, stay tuned tomorrow night to see what.
I mean, no,
happens with
that's
that.
great to hear that, you guys are on it, basically. Yeah, because I was driving home, and one of the big eucalyptus fall down right by the basketball court. And, you know, that was a huge tree. And I mean, that was the biggest one I seen, but throughout the storm, I saw maybe like 5. And, you know, I feel that Brisbane is lucky that people were not hurt, but there were a lot of trees that fall down. So it's something that definitely, you know, we need to look at and see how can we understand that better. Also, you know, just in general, sometimes when you have this type of floods, did they signal anything in terms of, well, now is the time to do this type of drainage or this type of retaining wall because the next one is going to be, you know, problematic or cause a lot of damage? Did you get the sense that that's, you know, some of that stuff is going to be necessary, or the infrastructure seems pretty solid to sustain another, you know, or additional, I mean, rains like the one we had?
I mean, that's kind of a huge issue, really. On the sustainability side, we have, you don't know if you've met her at a meeting, a sustainability manager, Adrian Etherton, and she staffs OSEC with me. And she's worked on, she primarily was one that worked on a climate adaptation grant that would kind of overarchingly pull together some other studies that have been done about climate adaptation, but also focus more on, pull that together under one plan in Brisbane, because there's so many facets of, you know, changing climate that are a problem. This is just one of them. There's plants, animals, insects, heat, you know, water saturation, its effects on roads, on trees, on buildings, on, you know, sea level rise, wildfires. There's just so much. So, you know, it would be great if we got that grant. I don't know, the application was just due, so I don't really know, but you know, it's hard to slice out one. It's hard to know that answer. It's hard to do it on the back of an envelope, you know.
Right. Yeah, that's a, you know, complicated question.
There definitely are some things going on at the county level. There are some things going on with everybody that has bayfront, every city that has, you know, beach access, whether it be bay or ocean. You know, there are a lot of parts moving, and it's not easy to say just on the back of an envelope, like, oh, we need to upsize all of our storm drainage, you know, and that'll solve the problem.
Yeah, I mean, from you know, the recent past floods, the 2 areas that come to my mind that they would hit pretty severe, and was the you know, the park road that they had all that sediment, and it was floated, and they actually worked day and night, and they did a great job.
Count along the county, or
The old county that connects to Visitation, the little loop over there.
Yeah.
And also the Crocker Park, the loop. And you know, so those. So I guess the question would be, is that because of the drainage got plugged, or because there's a lot of, I mean, for the loop on the Crocker Park, is it because of the runoff of the dirt, or is it like a draining issue, or?
so are you talking about South Hill that came through the Crocker Trail and out onto Valley Drive? That one. There was a drain inlet on, I'm not sure whose property. I was actually away when it happened. I'm not sure if it's the quarry's property or it's part of the county park or it was our property, but yeah, there was a drain that got overfilled with mud. Yeah. First there was a slide, and then all that mud went into the drainage. And so then everything, all the water and all the mud stayed on the surface and went on that path that I just described.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess that will be for staff updates, and you know, thank you for those updates. The next will be, do we have any chair and committee members matters? Okay, okay. So our next meeting is going to be May the 3rd, 2023. And I thanks everybody for attending and all your participation. We now can adjourn the meeting. Can I make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all.
thank you.